way up here, way up there. That's the Ark. We're gonna go up there. We gotta take a bus ride up to the Ark.
Hey everybody, welcome to Testimony House. In today's video, we're going to talk about Noah's Ark, Kevin. We're going to be talking about how did all the animals fit on the Ark and other questions that came about when we took a trip down to Kentucky in the Noah's Ark Encounter, Kevin. Do you remember that when we went there, it was just this massive boat in the middle of, in the middle of the country.
It was enormous. It really was. And not to discount what was inside, but that was really the most emotional or magical part for me, was standing at the foot or the base of this gigantic boat and just thinking to myself, this is what Noah and his sons looked at each day, and this is what they built. Like, this is what it would have looked like all those thousands of years ago, and 5,000 years ago, and just it's as big as a cruise liner. It is enormous and so impressive.
Yeah, let's talk about what the Ark actually is. For those who don't know, it's an encounter that's been built recently. It's a full-size Noah's Ark built according to the dimensions given in the Bible. Mm-hmm. It spans 510 feet long, 85 feet wide, and 51 feet high. This is an incredibly large structure. I mean, when we planned our trip there, I have no expectations. But when we roll up, you park like a mile away from the thing because there's no way to make something so big just in the middle of city infrastructure. It would just take up everything.
Well, and I thought it was brilliant too. And maybe it was just a happy coincidence, or maybe it was by design and they bought it. But this thing sits on this almost like a hill, this plot of land, and then there's a valley, and then you're on a parking lot. So you're standing and you're looking over this, dip ravine, and here out in the distance is this giant boat sitting on top of this hill, nothing but surrounded by trees and forest, and even that, when you're standing there, John, and you're looking at it, because it's not in the middle of a city. It's not, there are no skyscrapers or highways.
Yeah, to sort of take you away from the environment.
Yeah, and where it would take you out of the past. Mm-hmm. It was almost as if you were standing 5,000 years ago on this hill looking in the distance and seeing what probably many of the people in Noah's day would have seen from far off, and would have seen him build this crazy monstrosity of a boat that, in that day, they... right in the middle of the land, like he's not even by an ocean. So people must have really thought he was off his rocker.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt about it. And that's what I want to talk about in this video today, Kevin, is, some of the questions that come up surrounding Noah's Ark, and we can give, our thoughts on this. And if you have questions about Noah's Ark, feel free to put them in the comments, and we can, communicate with you after this video is over. But because this exhibit that they've created, I can hardly even call it an exhibit. It has exhibits in it, but this thing is a massive, real size Ark. But inside it, they have all these different things. So it's built in a couple different ways. So one is like, part of it is like reconstructed, like this is how he would have housed the animals, and there's real size animal replicas and different things. It's even got animal noises in there, so you can maybe feel what it sounds like. But then throughout the rest of it is just different exhibits, sort of talking about Noah's day, talking about the design of the Ark, talking about
flood.
how all the different things. And so for me, one of the questions that I saw and that I've seen get brought up in the debate with Bill Nye and in various places when they talk about Noah is, how did they get all those animals in there, Kevin? And I thought that the Noah's Ark exhibit, when it talked about that all the animals were juveniles, was the first time that I had heard that is like a realistic answer to that question.
Sure.
Instead of it just being, oh, it's so big. Yes, it was big, but yes, they also had, instead of having 10 species of dogs, they had one breed of dogs.
That's
and it was a
correct.
puppy. And it was a puppy. So it wasn't
it could have been. And
obviously
I don't think it had to have been. And there are also Trey Smith does a great documentary on Noah's Ark and gets really into the size and does, how much cubic square foot, would you need? And the Ark was way more than enough. It was too big for all the animals. In other words, that there was plenty of empty space, believe it or not. Like, yeah, I'm going to go so far as to say not only 2 by 2 could go in there, but there was still empty space. But also, to kind of take a step back, is the dimension, he goes into, and other scientists have corroborated this, that the dimension, size, shape of this ark needed to be this size, it needed to be this height, it needed to be this length, it needed to be built in this, cigar-shaped that it is, in order to never be able to be capsized and to be able to survive a global event like the flood.
Yeah.
So they say that this is the most ingenious, this is the design. Like, if you were going to build one today, we could not build a boat better than what the dimensions were put in the Bible all those millennia ago. It was, and it defied, it defies any engineer today. No engineer can invent a better working
And we've
boat
tried
for this.
the Titanic and all these other things. Even the cruise liners today, you often hear how they'll tip over, or they'll get stuck at sea, and people are stuck on these things and they can't get into port, and problems exist with these huge things. And so for this to be created thousands of years ago is
right. So I say, it's not just the size of this wasn't just for the animals. I guess what I'm trying to allude to here is that we think in our mind, natural mind, and from the naysayers, they can never get all the animals in there, and it would never be that big. It was not. I believe it was that big to survive the onslaught of the flood and the waves and the size of waves. It wasn't that big to house the animals, because it could have been smaller even and housed all the animals. I love your example of the different kinds of dogs and stuff. I mean, have you ever gone to the zoo, John? Right, we've got a great zoo here in St. Louis.
free zoo.
And one of the things I don't like about the zoo is that they're all the same animal.
Yeah.
So you got the New Zealand deer, and then you got the African deer, and then you got the North American deer, and then you got the white-tailed deer, and they're all the same deer. They're all deers. And so when they say that, every animal by its kind, so you didn't have, 500 different types of deer.
Yeah.
You had one deer, one deer, you had one dog, you had one breed of elephant, you had just one kind of horse. You didn't have.
Well, how could it turn into all that, Kevin? If that's true, how could one horse turn into all those different horses?
Sure. Well,
that's the question people would say, right?
How do we get my size? And then you got, I don't know,
John's size. Or that's a good example. Noah's family too were the only people on the earth.
That's right.
So how do we get all the different colors, shapes, sizes, and ethnicities out of that one group? It's the same difference.
We don't have all the answers. I wasn't there back. I don't know what Shem and Ham and Japheth look like, or even what Noah looked like.
We don't know what the animals look like either.
But I do know that our DNA is complex. God, is amazing in his design and is part of our longevity.
There's lots of different questions that surround the ark, Kevin, whether or not it's the animals that are in the ark or the size of it, or if the flood was even real. I mean, so many different even religions and history and different cultures describe a large-scale flood event in their history books. And so
that's right.
When we talk about the flood being evidence of an existence of a creator, because it's woven into all these different storylines, is that something we can rely on, do you think?
Oh, for sure. The existence of a creator, that'd be maybe a whole nother argument, but the existence of the flood, a global flood, a catastrophic flood, yes, that there are all many, many cultures, you can trace them all the way back, have a story of this cataclysmic flood.
Yeah.
So there's no deny. And then when you get into the fossil records, John, you know that in the Sahara Desert and many deserts, there are whale graves in deserts.
Isn't that amazing? I mean, I've heard this and I'm like, no, there's not. There's not really whales in the desert, are there?
There are whale graveyards
Google it.
in the desert.
Maybe Google won't show you, but DuckDuckGo it.
Do you know it's more common than not to find blood and bone marrow and soft tissue and dinosaur bones?
Oh, I thought that's supposed to disappear after
a trillion years. You're going to try to sell that one on me, that these bones are trillions of years old, and you crack them open and there's gooey stuff in the middle. Weird. There's that. The fact that you have animals and seashells mixed together in the sediment what they call is these layers of sediments over millions of years old.
Or
Right. Or it could have been that if you take a bunch of water, a bunch of animal debris, a bunch of plant debris, and a bunch of earth
yeah,
that have different densities, and you mix it all up, what do you think is going to happen? The heavier stuff's going to settle to the bottom, the lighter stuff, and in between all that sediment falling, you're going to have sedimentary layers, and in there you're going to have a mixture of animal, seashells and sea life and plant life, all mixed in like a blender in every one of those levels. And that is exactly what you see in sedimentary layers. Science wants to lead you the line of bull that this line was, 2 trillion years ago, and this one was 500 million.
we can carbon date it, even though that's not a real thing, because that's what Brian Osborne told us, that's not reliable.
Yeah, it's so crazy. It's so ridiculous. I love the pictures where there's a tree standing straight up in the middle of,
or there's like an elephant bones above a fish or below a fish bone or something, and you're like, how did that happen?
Right. Millions of years, really?
Yeah.
And how if the, you get the idea. I mean, it's the stuff that they try to sell us on, and we just gobble it up. Oh, my TV's talking to me. My TV must be telling me the truth because my TV would never lie. And now the internet. Oh, I read it on the internet, and it must be true.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to think for ourselves, and we don't want to actually think that what are the people that call themselves leaders in our lives would be lying to us. Yes, newsflash, they're lying to you.
What did you see when we were inside the Ark that sort of stuck out to you as either a new piece of information or something that maybe caught your eye?
I think just the massive scope of it. I mean, we've always seen pictures of Noah's Ark, whether it was a children's cartoon or even living out here and growing up in St. Louis and St. Charles County. There used to be a restaurant, John, called the Noah's Ark. Mm-hmm. And the restaurant was a replica of Noah's Ark.
Not this size, but
no, clearly not. Much smaller, but it was. And it had the elephants coming out the top and giraffes, and I always wanted to go to that restaurant. Always used to beg my parents, "Can we go there to eat? Can we go there to eat?"
I never went in there.
Yeah, it was a seafood restaurant.
Okay.
It was not cheap, and so we did
seafood for Noah's Ark. That's not because there was no fish on the boat. But
they had excellent clam chowder, they said, and I did eventually eat there a couple times before they tore it down. And but so we've have all these pictures in our head of what it would look like. But when being there, John, and walking in. And like that's the sensory of it. You're hearing, the makeshift noise of what it would sound like with the sea hitting the side of the boat, and seeing like they had on the walls, and I think we've got some pictures of it of the clay pots that would align the walls and held together by boards and stuff so they wouldn't fall, just filled with probably grain and water. They're the water jars because you got to have enough water on there for the animals and yourself. Had bags that would have been bags of wheat and corn, and so that I actually, John, I never really thought of where would you store the food, what would that look like, how much would you actually need. They even had the makeshift cages. They had designed what they believed would have been these feeding troughs or feeding tubes where they would have just gone in, poured the food in a tube, and it would have gone into the cage and fed the animal directly, where they which would have made it much quicker, much more efficient for
animal feedings. You don't take the animals out of the cage. And
for the 8 people on the boat to feed all these animals daily. And I just think that the attention of detail, the thought that they put into what it would have looked like to live on this boat, what the daily chores, the daily tasks, the size of the cages, the way the cages were built, out of what material.
Yeah.
All of that was incredibly thought out, and it was not done cheaply. It wasn't done just like, just make something up. I think they really put a lot of care into, is this realistic? Is this what we know of maybe historical boats back in that day, or as old as we can go back? I just really appreciated the attention to detail.
The thing that really struck me is that we had talked to a couple different people who worked there while we were there, and one of the girls on our way out basically said that this is the most people we've had in a long time, because we went as some of the coronavirus restrictions were breaking.
Soon it was over.
there was like 10,000 people the day we went or something. They
Yeah,
said,
yeah.
but she said like a month previous there was like 300 total, like all day long, and so the parking lot was completely full. People were jammed like sardines in here. Masks were hardly visible. Yeah, and to watch this, and it encourages my heart, Kevin, not just because of coronavirus, but to like see that this many people were excited to go like visit this attraction and to like learn about the Noah Ark story.
Yeah,
and
think
to,
about
like,
this. Soon as,
build their faith.
there was no fear, there was no spirit of fear there. But for all these people, these thousands of people, they finally things had opened up in the world, and they didn't go to a ball game, or they didn't go to the bar, they didn't go to the movies, they didn't go run to some of the more secular type of godless places that have been capturing our attention for decades and been a big distraction to us as people. They chose to go to a Christ-centered attraction to learn and to show their kids.
That's what was exciting to see.
Yeah, and that is super encouraging. That this is the first thing, kind of big opening weekend for the country, and no masks and no real hindrances and no social distancing, and what did they choose to do? And they chose to do that, and that was super encouraging. It was great to see. People are hungry. I've said it before privately, and I'll say it publicly. The biggest mistake that the devil ever did was shut down the world's entertainment. Shutting down the casinos, shutting down the bars, shutting down the movie theaters, shutting down professional sports almost all last summer. I was like, fantastic. Now people are sitting at home, twiddling their thumbs, and they're starting to think, and they're starting to pay attention, and they're starting to wonder, what is life really about? When you strip away all the distractions, you strip away Hollywood, you strip away the casinos and gambling and drinking and even just vacations, even just I mean, it was a lot of places you couldn't even go to the beach. I mean, you take all that away, and then you really have to start examining your life and I think that was the number one mistake the devil made, which thank God the Lord and the Holy Spirit moving on people and waking people up, that there is more to life than these fleshly distractions. And I think it showed that people realized that when they were going to the Ark for entertainment now, and not a lot of these other not so great places.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Kevin. The fact that there was this many people here, and you can see down the Ark, but you can't see the end of it. And when I think, okay, how did God get all those animals in there? It makes sense to me just seeing it visibly. So the idea of, and I'm sure many people have their own questions about the Ark. So if you have questions about the Ark, put them in the comments. Have you been to the Ark Encounter? I would love to know what your experience was, what you took away from it. Put those in the comments, because I'm interested in more than just our own opinion. We really want to know what people are getting out of things like this, and like, what else is there out there? Is there another Ark Encounter that we don't know about, type of thing, or what else are people trying to put together? Wouldn't it be amazing if instead of Six Flags and Disney World, we had, a half a dozen or more of these places spread out throughout the country, where there was just like, okay, this is the town of Bethlehem, and this is, all these different things. Wouldn't that be something?
It would be awesome.
All right, guys, I want to thank you for watching today's video. Don't forget to visit the other videos that we have created regarding this subject, the Creation Museum, and then our interview with Brian Osborne. And then while you're online checking those out, don't forget to head over to testimonyhouse.org, where you can partner with us as we continue to make Christian videos for you to watch here on our YouTube channel. You can get any of our shirts, including the ones we're wearing today, over on our store, and this helps support our ministry and help us do all the things that we're trying to do. We appreciate you watching today's video, guys. Until next time, we pray you discover a future and a hope for your life today.